Good afternoon. Welcome to Lunch with Edna. I am Dr. Cosette Lemlin. I am the chair of Edna. Thank you for spending time with the Educational Developer Network of Alberta. We have two members of the Edna Network, Brooklin from NorQuest College and Lauren from Mount Royal University, who are going to share some ideas around think before you upload, what faculty and students need to know about academic file sharing sites and programs. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that the session will be recorded, but we will only be recording the facilitators. That's myself, Lauren, and Brooklyn. So anyone else will be cut out, including the question and answer that is reserved for the end. With no further pause, I would like you to help me welcome Lauren and Brooklyn to Lunch with Edna.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for sharing your lunch break with us. My name is Brooklyn. I'm an ed developer and instructor here at NorQuest College, and I'm coming to you from my classroom here on campus, also in Edmonton, Treaty 6, Métis Region 4. And I'll throw it over to Lauren to say hi as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Cross, and I'm coming to you from my office at Mount Royal University, which is located in Calgary, Treaty 7 territory. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay, so this session, think before you upload, what faculty and students need to know about academic file sharing sites and AI platforms, actually evolved out of a session that Lauren and her colleagues at Mount Royal did back in the spring for the Alberta Council on Academic Integrity Spring Provincial Meeting, in which they shared their experiences of file sharing, checkers, detectors, and some of the ongoing challenges that they are experiencing with students and a struggle to maintain academic integrity as AI and technology evolves. So Lauren and I connected and we proposed this session to Cosette, and we're happy to share some of let's say ongoing challenges. I just keep saying ongoing challenges, which we've all heard before many times. The ever-evolving landscape with AI. All right, Lauren, I'm going to advance the slides. And you're good with that?
Yes, good with that.
Okay, Lauren, over to you. The context for Mount Royal University to start us off.
Sure. Yeah, so just a little bit of context, because I know if we're talking about something like AI tools, often folks are wondering about what's going on at our institutions. So currently, MRU doesn't have an institution-wide policy on generative artificial intelligence tools, but there is guidance available. We have a working group, and that institutional policy is sort of in the works. We do have course policies and assignment policies on Gen AI use, of course. So basically, how students are permitted to use Gen AI varies widely across programs and courses, and even from one assignment to the next. We did add, as an institution, something to our definition of plagiarism in the MRU Code of Student Academic Integrity, which basically says that use of AI tools or technologies without appropriate citation and or instructor approval are not permitted and would constitute plagiarism. There's not currently at MRU an official or a kind of accepted Gen AI tool. So students, if they are using Gen AI platforms of any kind, they're kind of doing so of their own accord. But we do have Turnitin as a text matching software at MRU. And right now, faculty are able to see that detector score for AI built into that kind of text matching work that Turnitin claims to do. So an instructor would theoretically be able to have students submit their work through Turnitin and then be able to see up to 100% what percentage Turnitin believes makes the work AI generated. And at MRU, we don't currently have academic file sharing sites blocked, so I'm able to access them right on campus. But there is something in our similar policy about plagiarism and academic misconduct that sort of covers students purchasing work from others and things like that. So that's just a little bit on the MRU end. over to you, Brooklyn.
Okay, some similarities and differences for the NorQuest college context. We do have a Gen AI policy, an institutional policy that it was instituted in April 2024 after significant consultation. It's a difficult policy to implement, so I recognize that quite a few institutions in Alberta and across Canada may not have a policy yet. You're working on it, you're contemplating it, you have guidelines, some have a policy. Like this isn't something that I would say that you must have. But it has, for us, we found it helpful as institutional guidance. And the policy specifically provides guidance on copyright, intellectual property, as well as restricts faculty and students from uploading, again, copyrighted material into a Gen AI platform. So faculty specifically cannot upload student work. They also can't upload student work for the purposes of checking or detecting. So with that in mind, we actually don't have an ability to do any kind of detecting or checking because we also don't have Turnitin. What we do have, though, are guidelines on acceptable use. Um, as Lauren mentioned, though, the guidelines do vary on the teaching and learning side, right? It's the instructor or program level authority to determine what would constitute acceptable use. So for this course, students can use Gen AI tools in this fashion or for this assignment. And typically, those policies or those guidelines are stated in a syllabus statement. Syllabus statement is like Gen AI is allowed, or Gen AI is not allowed, or allowed with some restrictions or more guidance. We also do have 3 official institutional Gen AI tools, the general purpose LLMs. We have Copilot, which is the one that is recommended because it has an additional layer of security. It doesn't train on data, right? It's behind the NorQuest server. So our IT people prefer that if we're choosing, we choose Copilot. We also have ChatGPT and Claude that have been institutionally approved. This, though, however, only applies to not to students. It only applies to faculty and staff. Students are free to use whatever. Right? They're still beholden to general policies on conduct and like should be mindful of privacy and IP and copyright, but they're not restricted, so they can use whatever they like. As I mentioned, we have no text matching or AI detection software. We have only human detection over here. And academic file sharing sites are blocked. So I cannot access Chegg or Course Hero or any of the sites that we're going to explore today. I can only, like, if I Google them and there's something that comes up, like a student has used or downloaded a file from one of these sites, I just get like a Google preview and I screenshot that. And that's the only evidence that I can use. All right, back to you, Lauren, for our goals for today.
Sounds good. Now I can see the slides, so I can actually follow along. Thank you. Yeah, so we're hoping to sort of accomplish a few things in our short time together. The first goal is that we'd like to discuss the risks associated with these third-party file sharing and AI platforms. So you might already be aware of some, but we'd like to bring some specific risks to your attention and discuss them with you, as well as to suggest some strategies to mitigate these risks for students, and hopefully hear a little bit from you in terms of strategies you might be thinking about or already using. And that means we'd like to identify strategies to foster academic integrity and ethical AI use, so including safer tools, and basically work together to support students to navigate the risks that we're talking about, as well as, you know, some of the benefits or affordances that come with these tools.
All right, everybody, we're starting off. We'd like you to share your concerns. Lauren's going to paste the link to the Padlet in the chat, and I'll get it up on the screen here. If you have any issues with the Padlet, you can also just type your concerns into the chat, and we'll review them that way. What's one concern you have about this topic, educator or student perspective, right? Checkers, detectors, academic file sharing. It's a lot of good, juicy, messy stuff to explore. While you're doing that, I'll put the Padlet up on the screen. Love seeing these come in, everybody. You're so fast on these too. Okay. Yeah. Copyright, privacy, staying up to date. Feels like it's impossible to stay up to date. Can't possibly run fast enough to keep up to date with all this technology. Creating policy that can't be enforced, for sure. Copyright, intellectual property, inability to discern student versus AI created material. That's the kicker, for sure. Students concerned with AI checkers giving false positives. Yep, that's a hugely stressful experience. Servers on outside of Canada, again, privacy issues, false positives. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to come back to this comment. Not entirely sure what you mean by academic file sharing. So these are commercial file sharing sites. So Chegg, Course Hero, a couple of big ones, where students are encouraged to upload their work. They get credits when they upload. Those credits are then applied that they can download other students' work. So basically it's just a commercial clearinghouse for cheating. If I don't want to write the essay myself, I can go online to Chegg or Course Hero, find another student who's uploaded the essay for their class, downloaded it, right? And I put my name on it and I submit it. It's a kind of commercial contract cheating. And we'll get into this in a minute, but these sites have now been AI enabled. So they have even more additional layers of technology that further facilitate academic misconduct, but then further add layers of intellectual property, copyright, privacy. Yeah, whoever just wrote this comment. For lack of the terms, the old gen of file sharing sites, Chegg, et cetera, going all in on AI in an arms race with AI tools. Yeah, this is just another leg of the arms race for sure. Yeah, concerns about critical thinking.
I was just going to add, Brooklin, that I think I was sort of nodding my head looking at that comment too, because I think that's sort of the overlap that we're concerned with today, because I see a lot of really important concerns here, and we might not be able to address them all when it comes to things like student use of AI and what that might mean for assessment and reading and critical thinking. But we'll do our best to at least kind of tackle what AI means in that intersection with these academic file sharing sites.
For sure. So many implications. I'm also seeing a term that I haven't heard before, dog fooding to understand. So I'm going to just make a note of that. I'll Google that later, or I'm sure there's a TikTok video that I could learn about. Okay, I'm switching back to the slides. Lauren's going to carry on with starting to explore the implications of these sites, these contract file sharing sites, and how they've been AI enabled. Give me a second, Lauren. I'll get the slides back for you.
Sure, yeah, and I don't know if you still want to do your overview of how these websites work, Brooklyn.
Oh, I'm next. Okay.
Maybe just really quick. You'd already gave a nice overview.
Really quick. So I can't talk about them and switch screens and share at the same time. It's too many things to juggle.
Yeah.
So we're specifically looking at sites today, Chegg and Course Hero, as we've mentioned, Scribber, Quillbot, StuDocu. So again, these are the commercial file sharing sites that incentivize students to upload their work. And they're uploading two different kinds of work generally. Either it's their own work, so their own intellectual property, assignments that they've completed for the course, their own study notes. They upload, get credits, apply those credits to then download other work. And typically they're wanting to download other assignments to submit as their own in sort of a contract cheating approach. The second type of work that students will upload is faculty or institutional IP. So they can upload your entire curriculum. They've uploaded my assignment instructions, my slides. I operate in a different context because I'm in the college context. So for IP, the college holds the IP for all of the work, the curriculum. At university, of course, it's the professors who hold the IP, but regardless, students are uploading work that they don't hold the copyright or IP to, and then they're using it to then engage in contract cheating, right? Via these commercial file sharing sites. Okay, now I'm going to go back to sharing the slides and Lauren will explain some more.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Brooklyn, for juggling those windows. And yes, Scribber is part of these commercial sites. I know I keep realizing kind of that there are more and more out there. So I think that these websites are not always used nefariously. Like I think sometimes students might upload an example of an assignment that they did well on it with the actual hope of helping others. Although, of course, they might receive credits, as Brooklyn talked about before. In other cases, it might just be students trying to, help each other through some kind of, Q&A where a student posts sort of like almost a forum thread where they're asking a question about something and then other students might respond. So hopefully that kind of answers the question for anyone who wasn't totally sure about that term. Was there anything else specifically you wanted to add about these, Brooklyn, or should we maybe move on?
I just think quickly before we move on, these sites feel like old school cheating, right? Like we were talking about contract cheating, and it was really kind of heyday. It peaked during the pandemic, but this feels like outdated. And sometimes I say to students, like, have you guys not got the memo? Like all cheating is happening via just ChatGPT and AI now. Like, what are you doing? Still hanging out, right? On these old sites. But since these sites are now AI enabled, the sort of evolution of technology enabling contract cheating has just continued, right? Continues to explode. Okay. And so one thing that we're seeing specifically is these sites are marketing and targeting students in such a way as like they don't announce themselves as cheating sites. They announce themselves with really incentivized language like your complete writing solution. Right? Here's how you can ace your next test, be successful in your course, and the menu of options that students can select from, right? The AI detector, the paraphrasing tool, these were formerly spin bots, right? That also feel really old school technology because they didn't do a really good job. But now, right, because of natural language processing, ChatGPT is a really effective spin bot that sounds human. Free grammar checker, citation generator, and the AI humanizer. So really from the menu, students can just pick and choose however they want to engage. And it sounds to them like this is what they should be doing. This is what academic success looks like from Quillbot's marketing perspective. Here's Scribber, again, note the language, your path to academic success, similar menu of tools. So it's really a one-stop shop for students now. I mean, they can go to ChatGPT, of course, and we know they're doing that as well. But many students already had this sort of workflow of going to check, going to Course Hero, going to Scribber, and now it's just look at these enhanced menu options. Scribber is even better than before, and it's really your one-stop shop. They also, of course, have handy apps. So you can go StuDocu on your app, right? Study for your exam, record your class. And because all of these AI layers now ingest the content, so students could be sitting in my classroom. I'll be teaching here at 1:30 today. They could be sitting in the class, their phones recording using this app. The app then ingests that content, summarizes it, spits it out in the form of practice quizzes, notes, study aids, and I have no idea. So it feels like a very different environment in terms of the contract cheating that we used to experience now is this very large, right, AI-enabled world where students feel like, oh, it's perfect. This is just helping me succeed. Course Hero, similar, right? One app to ace the school year, snap and solve a math problem, AI-powered homework help, find study material on any subject. And of course, the study material is not, it's not generated by Course Hero. It's all that has been uploaded. So every time students upload content, right, they are just sort of feeding that endless need for more data and content that again becomes the training data for the AI. Okay, back to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Brooklyn. Yeah, so as Brooklyn mentioned, I shared some of this information at a meeting for the Alberta Council on Academic Integrity in the spring, and kind of just reported on, after talking to some colleagues at MRU, what we were noticing. But really, in my work with students, I'm often supporting them with writing assignments, presentation assignments, anything kind of academic like that, but not acting as their instructor. And so at times they might share concerns or comment on their practices with me. And so I was kind of noticing a few trends related to this intersection that I wanted to share with you folks as well. So, and Joel was actually, who's just posted in the chat, was actually one of the colleagues who I talked to about this. And so thanks, Joel, for your contributions as well. But essentially what we're seeing with the checkers, detectors, and chat bots are a few things. The first one was just that I noticed something that I'm sure many of you have kind of come across before, which is the non-existent sources on reference lists. I also teach on the side at MRU as a contract instructor. And so I had a student who submitted a paper. The paper looked all right. Then by the time I got to the reference list, realized some of the sources didn't exist. I couldn't find them anywhere. And so I met with that student, and they said that they had done the actual work, but then submitted their paper to a website that was offering to do like an AI formatting check. And that apparently that website had made changes to their reference list that the student wasn't aware of. And of course, they acknowledged it was on them that they didn't, check over the reference list before handing it in. But essentially, this was sort of it seemed like an accidental hallucination that had happened. And so for many of us, maybe we might feel like, okay, that's a little bit hard to believe, or well, regardless, it was still on the students to not check that. But I did start to hear this from other students as well. And so, we've heard of students obviously using ChatGPT for all sorts of reasons related to learning and studying and help with assignments, and outsourcing the work they're supposed to be doing in some cases. But one of our student advocates who works with the MRU Students Association shared that she'd seen some cases coming up where students had used ChatGPT just to check their APA reference lists. And ChatGPT had changed just one or two characters in their DOI links for the scholarly journal articles that were on their reference list. And it made the list look made up, I guess, because the links no longer worked. And so then it sent, these red flags for their instructor. But essentially what we were sort of finding is that these are students who had actually done the work and who were turning to, in some cases, these AI chatbots, in other cases, these like APA checkers, or so they're called on these academic file sharing sites, to sort of proof and edit their referencing work for them. And then another sort of trend I noticed at the same time is that many students, and I think several of you commented on this in the Padlets, many students are very anxious about AI detectors and about their work being seen as AI generated. So I think that's the next bullet point, Brooklyn, if you can hit that one. But essentially, some students are using Gen AI tools to see if their work is going to come up as, for example, 65% AI generated. So they might be asking a tool like ChatGPT for help with that. In other cases, they're again turning to these sort of third-party file sharing websites and maybe uploading their, essay, for example, or writing assignment into a plagiarism checker or an AI detector checker to see what kind of score they get. So in some cases, that might be students who did use AI to some degree, but in other cases, it might be students who didn't at all and who were so worried about Turnitin and the AI score that might come up there that they were sort of taking these extra measures just out of their anxiety and wondering what might come up for their instructors. And so, I think you might not be able to actually open these websites and preview them, Brooklyn, but just to give you an example, I'll put one in the chat in case anybody wants to open that up. Essentially, you can see kind of the plagiarism checkers, those sorts of buttons on the websites, if you do have access to them, where students would be encouraged to just upload a full paper. I think I have one from Quillbot here too, that's specifically an AI content detector. Yeah. So if you do click on that link, whether it's now or later, you'll be able to see that they can either upload their entire document or just paste the text in there. So if that's something you're not familiar with, it might help to see. And then it kind of produces its own AI generated and AI refined score to say how, the extent to which it's human written or not. So for me, that was kind of proof that even though these sites might have seemed sort of obsolete, or at least we already knew they were out there, that students might be being attracted to these websites for new reasons because of this intersection with Gen AI. And that ironically, using an AI checker on one of those websites might impact the score that they got on Turnitin. Not that that's something that we would want to consider reliable anyway. And then in addition to that, we might have had faculty and other staff using the third-party AI detector websites for their own reasons, which of course can be cause for concern. So it sounds like at NorQuest Brooklin, you folks are not permitted to do that, but we've kind of heard various things, of course, across the post-secondary kind of landscape that faculty might be tempted to do that because they don't know how else they can provide proof if they do suspect that there's something like academic misconduct happening. So all of this is kind of contributing to this intersection, but also it feels like students and often faculty and other staff might not be aware of some of the terms and conditions and privacy policies attached to these websites and what might be happening to the work that's uploaded, whether it's lecture notes or a human written assignment that a student uploaded or that an instructor uploaded to sort of test the AI score. So we wanted to show you a few examples of these policies. And these are going to come from a sort of umbrella organization called Learneo. This used to be known as Course Hero Incorporated, but now it's Learneo. And so you can see there are several of these sort of academic file sharing sites that fall under Learneo. So we've got Cliff's Notes might be sort of like the oldest generation one that I was familiar with, but more well-known sites like Course Hero, Quillbot, and Scriber as well. And Bartleby, which was a new one for me. And so just from the Learneo kind of main privacy policy on their website, we pulled a quote there just to show that one of the concerns with this being an umbrella organization is that under how we use your personal data, basically Learneo is permitted to distribute and display the user's content across one or more of their services. So the example they give is if you post a question or answer on coursehero.com, it may be distributed and displayed on another Learneo service and may include your coursehero.com username. So that might be one thing students aren't aware of if they're using these sites, even if it's just for that question and answer function, that maybe then if they provide an answer, it could then be used on a different website kind of without their knowledge. And if they did use anything akin to their real name, then that could be attached to it as well. Another example that we have for you is from Scriber. And so this just has to do with how long they hold on to your data for. I kind of just picked bits and pieces from these different policies, but basically within the Learneo privacy policy, each of its specific websites has their own policies. And so this one just had to do with how long they keep the data for, essentially edited documents. So I assume, I don't know for sure, but I assume that means that if students submit a document and then Scriber provides some kind of editing service or AI powered editing, that Scriber would hold on to that document for 12 months after editing. And then for plagiarism checked and grammar checked documents, it could be a month for the whole document or 12 months for the results of the check. For citation checkers and self-plagiarism checkers, it might be anywhere from 60 minutes to 90 days, depending on the type of the check. So they potentially have quite a lot of data about how students are interacting with these sites, as well as access to the work that they upload for quite a long time. And then just a few more examples come from the Quillbot policy here. So kind of a few that I found horrifying that I wanted to flag. The first one has to do with what kind of content they would actually keep. So you can kind of see from the highlights here, the content that a user makes accessible to Quillbot could include the contents of an email you prepare or receive. Not sure if that means with their own organization or how that works, but also chat messages that the user writes and receives, documents they create or upload, search queries, and text you input on websites you visit. And that when you upload documents, they'll store both a copy of the original document as well as any outputs they provide, like the paraphrased version and any information contained within. So again, really kind of handing over that information to Quillbot. A couple specific things once I really reviewed this in more detail that popped up to me were that if you use the voice to text function, although they don't store the audio, they do store a transcript basically, which is the text converted from the audio input. And that with the AI chat, they're collecting, the entirety of those chat communications. And then my most recent favorite here is has to do with connecting your Google Drive to Quillbot. So if a student, for example, chooses to connect to Quillbot using their Google account, then they could choose to upload from their Drive with the feature that's built into Quillbot. And something that popped out to me here was you may only use the upload from Drive feature after you grant Quillbot permission to see and download all of the files in your Google Drive account. So I hope that gives you some kind of different directions of what you could find in these terms and conditions or privacy policies that not everyone might be reading when they're interacting with these sites. Yeah. So yeah, we're curious what stands out to you about these, and maybe you're aware of some of these policies related to a specific tool. Of course, I think a lot of us have thought about this in regards to what happens to our data when we input text or voice or anything into something like a chatbot. But we wanted to hear from you about what you think the implications of these tools might be. So feel free to just add to the chat this time. I think we'll go to the next slide, please. And we'd just like to hear, what stands out to you? What do you think are the potential implications for students or for others if you're thinking about it from that perspective? And I'll just put a link to the privacy policy in the chat in case anyone does want to just kind of go dig a little bit deeper. But note that it sort of starts with the big umbrella policy for Learneo, and then it gets into specific kind of terms for each of those individual websites.
It's validating everybody to see your reactions in the chat, because when Lauren and I reviewed and we were prepping for this session, it kind of, you start to get a sense of, are we just getting weirdly paranoid? We're sort of sitting with this too much. We're working in this space. Have we lost perspective? But no, no, it is in fact that horrifying. And I've been working with a number of colleagues in the K-12 sector recently. And I don't often think of the K-12 sector because I'm pretty firmly embedded in post-secondary, but K-12 is very much like a Google Classroom environment for a lot of schools. And so Google Classroom means like a lot of the AI tool that students interact with is Gemini as a result, and then their Google Drive, right? And this sort of the Google ecosystem and how easy it just seamlessly connects with something like Quillbot or Scribr, and how students, like really young students, could have all of that data then sort of populated and ingested. And, that's like over their academic careers, by the time they get to post-secondary, that entire sort of academic history of their work and communications, depending on how extensively they have like linked into the Google ecosystem and into these tools, that's significant. That's very big brother and concerning. Yeah, Raj, I see your comment, the transactional. Yeah, it's hard to get students to see beyond transactional. And I mean, the neoliberal post-secondary system that we operate in has leaned into the transactional model of education, and we fight it. We fight it. Yeah, Louisa, for sure. Students, like everybody's IP is implicated and violated for sure. Yeah, there's the students who find themselves kind of victimized by like, their own like lack of awareness, and then everybody else for sure.
Yeah, sometimes that can be a way to get people to care, I think. They might for some reason not care about their own privacy as much.
Yeah, and they're all too willingness to give up some privacy in exchange for something, again, the transaction, and that they see as a valuable transaction that we see as horrifying and not worth it. Joel, I like your comment, privacy literacy in terms of service fatigue, because why would anybody read the fine print, right? We don't expect students to read the fine print, to comprehend it, to understand its implications. Of course not. That's right. Even we struggle. We have to dig deep into this stuff and then share it with you all. And then, we have to sit with that too. Great comments, everybody.
Yeah, I think for the sake of time, we might have to kind of let that chat keep going, but maybe move forward because we do want to talk about what we can do about this. But first, I'll hand it over to Brooklyn just to sort of comment on the risks.
Okay, because you all are so awesome, we can quickly go through the risks because you've identified them, right? The first, there's privacy and IP risks. Students lose control over their data, their work. I mean, lose control that they willingly give up, but without full awareness, including names and IDs tied to uploads. And then there's the cross-service redistribution. Once you're in the Learneo ecosystem, or the Learneo tied to Google ecosystem, you really do give up all that control. Everything is just trafficked around and you don't know. Integrity risks, of course, hallucinated references, the over-reliance on chatbots, right? The offloading of learning and cognitive thinking, and then the misplaced trust in detector scores, students' false sense of security that if they upload their work to check that it won't get a high score, that they have in fact then just turned over their work and their IP and have given up some privacy in a well-meaning desire to ease some of the anxiety around detector scores. But again, find themselves in a difficult position. And then finally, the relational risks, right? We as staff, and whether it's me as an instructor, Lauren as a learning support specialist, like all of us who are, working with students and trying to support them in their learning, we feel pressured to detect versus support and struggle to find we can't really we at NorQuest can't detect because we don't have detector tools, and I'm glad for that. We've taken that very principled stance. Principled, but also budget. I'll add that. It's too expensive to turn it in. So probably right now it's more of a budget decision, but it initially was a principled stance. And we'd rather have more students seeking support and preserve the relational aspects of teaching and learning and not erode trust, so that we don't want students and faculty in adversarial positions. We'd rather students come for help than try to defeat an AI detector or avoid an AI detection. Okay, still me here, Lauren, I think, hey?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so what you can do, and these are sort of short-term, easy win steps as we, again, continue to navigate this really difficult landscape. Clear AI tool guidance and name the tools. If your institution, like ours, has approved tools, name them for students. You should use this tool, and here's why you should use this tool. Copilot has an additional layer of protection and security, and if you log in using your NorQuest student email, it will be within the NorQuest student database. It's a little bit less risky. So then we can simultaneously discourage additional tools like no Quillbot, no Coursera, like none of that stuff. Also have conversations about students about when you don't want to upload something. Like students might see it as totally harmless. I'm just uploading, I want to have some study questions. We'll say, well, we as faculty can create study questions, right? And give those to students instead. Instead of this, like the hype of personalized learning definitely is driving students to say, well, I'll just upload, right? And I'll have personalized learning. It's great. And what checking safely looks like. So checking safely, for me, in my context, when I'm teaching students, it says, you know what? Let's meet and we can work on your draft together. Or if you want to email me, I will review it, ask questions. Like I can be the checker for you. It does contribute to some of my workload, so I have to be careful about, right, how I balance workload, but I do make time for that since I don't want students like doing this kind of work with AI or in the learning environment and, experiencing harm. I'd rather say it's going to take me 5 minutes. Let's have a conversation and I can review your work. Also consider, I know this feels like, as Joel mentioned, like adding more to the ongoing fatigue of like policy language. It is what it is. Consider adding or adjusting a syllabus statement on AI that is more about supporting student learning, less about what's prohibited or allowed, and more about having students become aware of the harms or risks. So a think before you upload kind of AI syllabus statement, right? Be mindful of your privacy, be mindful of IP, right? What are the retention policies? How does redistribution on the Learneo platform, for instance, impact or create harms and risks for you? We don't want students again, just thinking, well, this is the way to do it. I'm helping myself. This is academic success, right? Chegg and Course Hero claim that this is the path to academic success. So if we can help students develop a little bit more of that, was it privacy literacy? I think Joel was the comment you made. That's really helpful. And put that in a syllabus, right? Along with, here's how we'll help you navigate this AI landscape and help you learn in ways that are safe and don't jeopardize privacy and harm. And when you do need help, instead of going to a Learneo platform, come to the Writing Center. Go see Lauren, a learning strategist, right? See a librarian. Meet your instructor during office hours, right? The safer tools and practices. Right? And specifically institution supported, which can be challenging, particularly in our current environment where students would prefer to access these tools, right, on their own time, what's convenient for them. And sometimes reaching out to a human is not their preferred mode, but we want to try to encourage that as much as possible. And that again, right, foster relationship and trust, like rebuilding that sense of human connection as being important, and not turning to tools for everything that they need, but actually coming to seek help from a human is the right way to go. Okay, and finally, if I haven't made this point clear enough, for those who are working with students, either directly in class or indirectly via the library or learning supports, these are conversations that you'll want to have with students and have them, right? Have them even when students are like, oh, yeah, I got it. I heard it all before. I think these are conversations that are ongoing and that students can benefit from and will have questions. Back to you, Lauren.
Sure, yeah. So I think, hopefully, Cosette, it's okay if we just take another minute to wrap this up. But and folks could keep adding to this Padlet if they like. But we have another Padlet. The link is in the chat, and we'd just like to hear, kind of based on what we've talked about today, is there one thing that you intend to do, or maybe that you're already doing, if you want to keep doing it, to help raise awareness and mitigate risks around these tools? And so if that is planning to discuss with students in real time, or maybe it's with colleagues, depending on your context, what could that actually look like? Is there a specific example that you think is powerful that you want to highlight? Maybe something related to what we showed, or an example of something a tool does that you want to show. So even if you have to run, feel free to add to the Padlet later, and we'll email the link and share that with everyone. But otherwise, please feel free to start joining and adding now. And thanks so much for your time and attention to this.
Thanks, everybody. This was great. We hope you don't feel too horrified for the rest of your afternoon.
I'm seeing lots of thank yous in the chat. So I just want to make sure that we recognize Lauren and Brooklyn as you're adding your thank yous and comments. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Brooklyn. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with everyone today and get this important conversation started.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Go think of something positive instead of horrifying.
We'll hang out here for another couple of minutes, but if you want to contribute to the Padlet or take an idea away from the Padlet, feel free to stay on for 5 more minutes. But
Thanks, Cosette. Yeah, and thank you everyone for your excellent comments. Both in the Padlets and in the chat, I'm still kind of scrolling and processing what everyone's contributed.